Hey everybody, welcome to our Champ and Sons Planet Zoo series. It has been a while since we've been in the Austin Zoo, but we are back now. Just to kind of give everybody a little bit of a channel update, we were going to be doing a Planet Coaster episode, but to be totally honest, I'm just not ready to finish that park yet. I think there's still more that needs to be done, but I just need to kind of figure out what that is before we move on to that stage. So we are entering into our zoo. Now, I can tell you this: what a majority of what you're going to be seeing here right now is going to be disappearing. Um, I did decide to keep it in to the episode because one, that's just how Planet Zoo works. You start building, you try something, and it doesn't always work out, so you have to make last minute changes. That's just part of the game, and I really just kind of wanted to show that off. Uh, this is what I'm building right now is supposed to be kind of a little grill, eatery that would lead onto the back porch um, area that essentially was going to be I guess I'd probably say an overlook to like an alligator type of you know, an alligator exhibit. Uh, it's one of those things that as I was building it, and I just wasn't too sure of how it was coming out. It just didn't feel right to me in the least. So since that was the case, I do end up taking this down. So don't fret if you're like, what is this thing that he's building? It looks just gosh dang ridiculous. No worries, it comes down, my friends. And there it goes. Boom. Just like that. And now I have hanging um, employees that are just floating in the sky. It's kind of trippy to look at when you think about it. And so I'm looking at the park right now, trying to figure out where I want it to go because I had envisioned in my mind something like that grill or even possibly coming into something like an education center, conservation education center. I have one at the front, but this one, it wasn't going to have much interior work. It wasn't really going to serve a whole lot of purpose other than uh, really there for appearance sake. And so I'm working on trying to figure out where I want that to go. I had it planned out, and that's kind of where my problem went. Most of the time when I play, whether it be Planet Zoo, Planet Coaster, I don't do a whole lot of planning out on how things are going to look. Yeah, I'll picture it in my head, but I don't, you know, fully go, all right, this is what we're doing. This is what we're making. Here's how it's going to work. And I tried that with this because I see a lot of, you know, creators do that. And I'm like, okay, there's got to be something to this. And I can tell you, it just is not for me. That's just not something in how I work, how I build. Uh, and so that was a major struggle in this episode. You can see here I am trying to put in another grill type area, um, an indoor essentially restaurant, more or less, that peeps could walk through. And once again, it wouldn't just be there like as a space filler. You'd walk through there, get yourself some food, rest, or what have you, and then come out to one of the multiple exhibits that we're going to be building um, into our zoo. But just something about it just wasn't sitting right. Once again, I get this is probably the second iteration of the grill idea, and it just felt off. It just feels oddly placed, like it doesn't really have a space there, it doesn't belong there. And so I do end up taking it down. I started to kind of like it, but it just wasn't fitting right for me and something that I would think would be in a zoo I'd want. If Austin had built a zoo that was more than essentially like the rehab zoo that we have, um, I it just wasn't fitting. And I think if you play the game long enough, you kind of get that happening to you every now and then. Um, and so that's kind of what we're going through is just these troubled pains. I could have deleted them, but like I said, I kept them in because I want people to see that yes, this happens to everybody. So if as you're playing these games, don't be surprised if it happens to you. That's just the way it goes, man. Sometimes these things occur. So you just power through it. Try something else. Before I had the grill over pretty much facing the bears. Now I'm working on putting in an education center right past our African wild dogs. So I really kind of keep trying with this theory, and I think eventually I'm going to put one in. It's just I've got to feel it's going to be right. I'm not going to really plan it out so much. I'm just going to start winging it like I ended up doing as we kind of get a little bit later on in the episode, where things really, I do think, come together very well with our zoo and kind of the direction that we're heading. Uh, so that's a pretty good positive for me in that area. Now, like I said, this will be taken down. There are a couple of exhibits that you're going to see me get into. I believe it is going to be I know aardvark is one of them, and tortoises is another that I start to build. And I did actually really like those. It's just kind of came down to, and you'll see it here in just a wee bit, kind of once I get done working on this top section, um, that it didn't sit right totally in that area. It just didn't. Once again, it just wasn't the right feel, and that happens. Okay, so this is for the time being our education center. I do like these. I guess they're copper type roofs, the green ones. I really do like those, and especially being an Austin Zoo with the attitude that I don't know. I guess you could say essentially Austin has more or less. Um, it's definitely going to be in there, and I'm definitely going to be able to put that into this zoo at some point. I just got to find it with the right fit. That's really all it boils down to. And so eventually we will get that thing hammered out. So don't stress about it. And I ain't stressing about it, so you don't need to be stressing about it either, for gosh sakes. Um, so yeah, and I think even everybody that as you watch this happen, um, and you watch this build come along, yeah, I think you can kind of see that okay, some of this stuff obviously it just doesn't fit with everything that we've done in our zoo so far, from the bears to the wild dogs, um, with our hyenas, it, our buffaloes. This just doesn't seem like it belongs. There's just something off about it, and so we're gonna worry about an education a little bit later on. Um, so for the habitats that we do get into in this episode, that do stay and that do actually remain and become a full part of the zoo at the time, is gonna be. I do keep the aardvarks. I move them. I rebuild their habitat and I move them, but they will be remaining. And then we get to a habitat that I was really looking forward to building, and that is our chimpanzees. Now, the chimpanzee habitat will go through a few iterations on it, and once we kind of get into that, I'll go over some of the ideas that I had in building it. It's one of those things that's, well, you got to see it for it to really make sense. Uh, so yeah, that's kind of where I was on it. So what we're doing right now is next to this education center, kind of filling in some of the blank space. it's not like a, it's not like the Planet Coaster where you can go, okay, I've got this blank area. Let me put up a flat ride or something, or let me put something in there to fill in the area. Zoos, from what I remember from the Fort Worth Zoo when I was there and all that, along the walk path, there's generally going to be open spaces that are filled. Sometimes they got little ponds in them, generally with those gigantic, huge goldfish, whatever the heck they're called, koi fish or some goofy crap like that. They normally got some stuff like that going on in them. And so that's really what this is. It's just a gigantic pond that we're kind of putting in to help kind of ease our guest along the path to get to the education center, to look at the next set of habitats that are coming in, the aardvark and the tortoises. And so that's really kind of what that was for. And here we come. Here we go. Starting to work on our animals now, putting the staff path. Because I prefer it when the staff have to enter in the back. There are going to be times that, hey, they'll be able to go in just off, the regular main path. But I think everybody could agree for the most part that, it's you're not really going to have essentially staff entering from the main part of the zoo where anybody could go into if they were able to break some code or something. And that's really kind of what the theory behind this was. And that's generally why you'll see me, for the most part, put these entryways off into the back part of a habitat or off to the side, but connected with a walking path that only, the staff have access to. And so that's really what I did there for the aardvark habitat. And coming up, we're going to see the tortoise habitat here in just a wee bit. And then we'll jump into the chimpanzees. And once we jump into the chimpanzees, I will join back with y'all as we do that. But in the meantime, enjoy some of the music. And I will catch up with y'all here in a little while. and I am back. And hope you enjoyed those little bit faster paced tunes than what we normally had. Uh, but it's good to return at the right time, I think, for this exhibit that's going on. Um, this is something I like to call working harder and not smarter, right? That's the theory behind what I'm doing at this very moment. uh, what we're looking at is I was building the kind of a little bit of an indoor habitat section for what's known as I think it's the Baird's tapir. Goofy name. Um, yeah, it's the Baird's tapir uh, habitat, and I had a lot of difficulty in getting it in. Here, I just forgot to put in windows. I put in the open slotted sections instead of the actual windows, not realizing that at the time, but had some minor issues at the beginning part of this habitat build. Uh, for some reason, it, they clipped through, and it probably obviously had to do with the amount of space that I left there, right? So I didn't leave very much space between the edge of the habitat and the edge of the building, and well, the animals clipped through the building and went running after people, I guess you could say. So that became a minor little inconvenience there. And here I am just kind of dealing with other issues in the park because I kept getting those dang warnings popping up about hyenas fighting, animals trying to kick each other's keister because they want to prove they're the biggest and the baddest. And so that became kind of annoying. I do have most of the animal welfare things disabled. There were some that since this recording has happened, I did go through and change. So keeping my fingers crossed, no more little error messages, not error, warning messages pop up like that. And for some reason, I cannot tell you what it was. For some reason, I thought, hey, I put in this little climbing stuff. Maybe they'll use it. Maybe these little tapir animals will be like, ooh, look, we're gonna go climbing on this thing and run and jump on it in front of all the people. But they don't like it. They didn't. So I deleted it. Um, that just wasn't something that I guess would work out. And there, my depth perception was just completely thrown off by by all the wonderful game. I had a little roof section sitting 10 feet above the remainder of the building. And so that's got that little issue corrected. So what I'm doing now with this roof is I'm just trying to put in, I don't know, a little, not just your basic, hey, square, fully glass roof. No, I wanted these animals to have a little bit of shading, right? That's what they needed, just a little bit of shading. Like, dang. So I did. I covered it up, but I left plenty of open space for plenty of sunlight to get through. And that I think this habitat turned out really well. As far as indoor habitats go, that uh, this isn't the only one. This is just the first one. I will actually have our second indoor habitat built in this episode a little bit later on. And for what animal? I'm not telling you. I'll give you a hint though. I had already mentioned it earlier, so kind of take those for what it is. Here's dang buffalo. I just started getting rid of it. Look at it, just select. Get all these bad boys out of here. Don't want you. Don't need you. And it's sandbox mode, so who cares about all the credits, right? Ah, yes, the good old aardvarks. Putting in the education for them. And I think the new aardvark habitat works out a lot better than the other one did. I really preferred how that came out versus uh, the older one. So here we have the entranceway, and you can see people are just flooding in. I don't know if it's because the vending machine I put in, or they're like, oh, thank God, new animal. And so they all start flowing over, and that habitat gets pretty good viewage from the peeps the first go around. And I really, like I said, I really liked how that kind of turned out. So here I am working on my next habitat. And I'm not sure if you were able to guess for what animal. Um, I was going to go with, drum roll everybody, the chimpanzee. you gotta have a badass chimpanzee habitat, right? Uh, yeah. So little hitch my giddy up on that. The pathway right there, I don't know, something goofy about it. I think the way I leveled out the land for the pond kind of stuck out underneath it, so it won't let me connect the path in that simple section. So I'd deal with it. Oh well. And what I was really wanting to do with this habitat is kind of have what would possibly be like an indoor and outdoor, right? A little duo, a combo. Go inside to check them out. Some that are playing in here. Go look out and check out these that are playing out here. And part of that was you have a viewing thing at a ground level, and then you also have a viewing thing at an upper level. And that's what I'm building right there. I'm trying to get it to work out to view right in my head because I want people to also be able to see this just as they walk by, right? You shouldn't have to come all the way down just to this one section to be able to see the animal. No, if your pathway leads by this, habitat, why not let people see it? Why not let them view it? And if this from that little angle it has perfect safety for them, the more power to them. Let them do it. Let them view these animals, right? And everything you just seen me build, you will notice it has been destroyed. And why, you may ask? Because changes needed to be made, I tell you. And that's what we're doing right here. This is the final way that this chimp habitat comes out to looking. All right, this is it. We are watching it, ladies and gentlemen. Possible history in the making, as I like to say. All right, uh, and I'm really proud of how this one came out. How it looked. It seemed a lot better. Yeah, I had reached out to someone that I subscribe to that makes Planet Zoo videos, about his advice as far as planning things out or just winging it. Because everything you've seen up to this point right now, um, and the Bear's tapir and the aardvark, the new aardvark habitat, everything before that was completely planned out. And I was even telling him, like, man, this just doesn't feel right. Something about it, it just seems off. I don't know if it's because, hey, I pictured this in my mind. It should come out the way I pictured it, and it just didn't. Or I'm not sure what it was. So, but I had mentioned to him on Twitter, and I'll link his channel down below. It's Dan Creates One. He's got a ton of Planet Zoo series, some great Planet Coaster series out there. It's really good stuff to watch. I'll put the link in the description below, so check out his stuff as well. But I had asked him, I was like, do you plan stuff out? Because I see the things these guys, like builders like him, create. And you're like, it has to be planned out. There's no way that people just wing it. And that was one thing he said is he kind of just wings it. And I was thinking, okay, I've normally been someone to just wing it. And here I am trying to plan it out because I see what these guys are capable of doing. And it's just not working for me. So, I'm like, all right, if this is what they do, or at least some of them, not all, obviously. But if this is what people who are really good at building and really great creators are doing, then this is something that I need, that I could probably listen to that, right? I could go, okay, hold on. If that's how they're working it, why can't I go back to what I was doing? Why was winging it so off for me? Well, it wasn't. Uh, it was actually working out really well. Our canine section was winged. The bears just thought of. The flamingos was more or less planned out, to be honest with you. I had really wanted to kind of get that part planned out. I had thought about that from the very beginning of, all right, at the start, boom, flamingos, simple, lovely. And so that's the only part that really has been planned out. Everything else I've kind of winged it, and that's what this is. So you saw the building section. Well, this is going to be another viewing area. I'm going to put this between another. I'll tell you right now, it's going to be a primate habitat, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. You will have to wait for the next episode to figure that one out, to be able to see that. So that's what I'm going with right now, and I really like how everything is turning out for this exhibit. I did originally start out with the cement walls, and I was like, man, cement walls feel kind of prisony, kind of like a prison. So what I always do get the animals, put them in. Here I am dealing with dang bears, and for some reason, these cooling fans and myself just don't mix, right? So I got the animal, put it in the habitat. I'm like, all right, let me make sure it can't escape. And I was like, holy Lord, it can escape everywhere, practically. I was like, wait a second. All right, I'm trying to find the dang Zoopedia section on them, and that took me long enough, for God's sakes. But I finally did. I'm like, all right, so just not climbable. I'm like, well, what dang habitat? Well, it isn't climbable. Of course, my original, the cement one. I mean, ended up having to go right back to it. Well, that's Planet Zoo for you. Make changes, just don't work out. Go back to something that does. And so that's what I did there. Now I'm just kind of dressing it up, putting in some trees that they like, getting them plenty of coverage, planting, different things like that. I'll put in a lot of some of their other enrichment items in first before, but what I did want to really get to with the chimps, what I was really looking forward to is something I'm really not all that good at, and that was building those little playscape things, basically, right? I they're really basic, so there's nothing that has this crazy, wild shaping and all that stuff to it. They're fairly basic. But I see the chimps on them all the time, so hey, they got to enjoy them. And I put the bedding down right by the window just to try to draw chimps over there so people can see. That's a great little viewing area. It's nice shaded. It's ground level. It technically sort of inside the habitat, so it's get you down low and gritty with the chimps. Uh, so that's why I put that bedding there. But here I am getting to one of the funner parts I had. And that's building these little, dare I say, jungle gyms, right? Uh, for the chimpanzees. And that was, to be honest, it was difficult because for some reason in my mind, I'm just like, this just doesn't look right, just can't be right. No, it's perfectly fine. Sheesh, Uh, the chimps love it. They run all over them. They have a great time with them. And so that's pretty much one of the things I'm happiest about at that point. And here I am just trying out a couple new pieces that normally I wouldn't ever try. But I really like how this thing works out. I've got it in most of the areas around, so definitely almost all the viewing platforms have a good shot of them. The underside area does. The little balcony on our chimp building does. Uh, and I think it turns out pretty dang good. I'm proud of it. You know what I mean? I really am. Uh, so that's kind of what we're working on here, and that's one of the things I wanted to do with this build and this zoo is pretty much push the things that I'm normally used to doing. Try to do it my way, but try to do some things a little bit different, how I wouldn't normally do it. And so that's kind of what I did here in terms of building these. I really do like the ones that Planet Zoo has just in game. I think those turn out really well. I do enjoy them significantly, but I just wanted to do my own. I wanted to get it out there to put my own in. Putting these little support logs is probably the dang most, I wouldn't say difficult, but most tedious part of it is making sure you have all these support logs out there, everything they can see. What's connected to where? So you wanted to connect certain, I guess, flatscapes to other flatscapes. Boom, put some logs in, angle them upright, measure them out, get things going. And like I said, they really do use them, and you'll get some cinematic shots of nice little chimpanzee. One of the many that we actually end up putting here in this habitat. But you'll get a good shot of one of them walking around, and you'll see them kind of playing around on their little playscape on their jungle gym, having just a good old dandy chimpanzee time. And so that's always pretty cool to see when you, especially when you build one of those things like this. You build it and you're like, all right, maybe they probably really won't like it. They won't, run on it. They won't play on it. And then you start to see them using it, and that's pretty much one of the coolest things that there is. Yeah, I still have some upgrades to do as far as putting in couple donation things, I think, around some of the other viewing areas. And once we get to the habitat that's kind of side by side that shares that platform with it, we'll kind of narrow some of that stuff down as far as where we put some of those finer details. And here's another little thing that has always kind of thrown me off for the most part, and that is the roofing. Normally, I just go with the basic roofs that the game provides, and I've got to do some finer touch-ups on this as we kind of go along. But I'll do some of that. I'll do a lot of that off screen, so you don't have to worry about seeing me place little blocks of art pieces and getting them to kind of twist and fit in just right. But it's using that little slope roof that comes out just at a slight little angle and extends beyond the walls and everything. And here I'm building what I want to be the cover for the balcony. I kind of built that same type of design thing for the flamingos earlier. So that was my idea behind this. It just, I don't know what's so different about from before versus now, but I just could not get it to work. And then I thought to myself, okay, I want these people to have a covered section, right? I don't want to just be out there in the sun. So so that little palm roofing stuff, oh, that just works out beautifully here to cover up this platform. And I end up putting a little I guess fence type thing in, railing and all that stuff right on top because you don't need people falling in. We don't need another Harambe incident happening in this zoo with their chimpanzees. So we go through, put in all the little railings to protect the peeps from the chimps and those little finer details. And I actually kind of enjoyed putting that in and building it. Normally, once again, I go with the stuff the game provides, but since doing this and my Planet Coaster series and seeing a lot of the things that all these other great content creators are able to put in, it's something that I was like, all right, I'm going to try it myself. And so I did, and it worked out really well. I really liked how that stuff came out. And I really liked that little border right there around the stairs. So one of the biggest things for me, especially with doing an indoor section that I have to keep in mind is lighting type stuff as we go along. And Planet Coaster is not such a big deal at night. And honestly, how often am I going to go in through that portion? Not really ever, but the peeps are. And if they're viewing everybody and viewing these monkeys at night, you want them to be able to see inside their building. So that's what I did. I put some little lighted section up there. And thankfully I did, because while I was doing that, I realized that my little sprinkler toy I had put in was hovering about 20 feet off the ground. Yeah, so ended up fixing that, putting in some benches to make people comfortable, got the donation boxes. I go through and put in a lot of education, not just for the chimp, for the habitat education and all that, but I make sure to put in a lot of the other ones that are more general. Try to switch those up just so, hey, there's a lot of different stuff out there that people want to see. I probably need to put a vending machine in. That tends to draw peeps around. So get a vending machine, get a lot more people inside there so that way they can take a look at the chimps from that viewpoint. And so, yeah, that's kind of what we're going to be finishing up with here is just this building, putting in some flooring on both the bottom and the upper floor, and just kind of doing some of the finer little detail work. There's definitely more that needs to be done, and I'll make sure to take care of all of that stuff after off camera so no one has to go through the process of seeing me put little things down like that. But here we are, just adding some more in to get those levels up. And we're going to be cutting over to some cinematic shots here in just a wee bit. And so while we do, or right before we do, I just want to say, remember to subscribe to Champ & Sons. And if you did like today's Planet Zoo video, hit that little thumbs up button. And I will see y'all in the next episode. So as always, everybody, stay safe. And, well, you know how it goes. Later, y'all.